I'm sorry, but what are these accusations? You can't just come up with accusations like managing underage OnlyFans girls without any proof backing that up. The only proof you provided for any of these claims is of Aman stating he could sell the server for 10k, which knowing Aman, he likely very well could sell it within that range. Next time you post something like this, provide decent amount of proof for your claims rather than your source being essentially a hunch. Alright, you want proof? Explain why I was being delayed from being verified to know you. Where all the proof was. Want to talk about that? What about people denying Bear ever had a reporter or managed Joef? You want to talk about that too? Exactly. Moving on from that, I finally got verified and gathered most of the evidence I needed, which will be left at the end segment of this video. But firstly, I'm going to show everyone a recording of an interview with one of the most reputable people who worked at Hypersteal and what they had to say about all the shit that they did. So I'm here with A, and my first question to you is describe your experience as a manager at Hypersteel. Like what it was like, everything that they did behind the scenes and how much you enjoyed it.
Generally speaking, to start off with, I was in quite a high position. I thought it was quite good to start with. However, as things went on, the workload increased, the pay decreased. Overall, the owners of the server, Bear, it did used to be Bear and Strowing, but Bear, I believe, sold Strowing off or removed Strowing somehow. Under Bear's management was very difficult to work under. He refused to let even their highest ranking staff members have any sort of freedoms or choice. Everything had to be done exactly how Bear wanted it to be done, which often basically left it as a one-man regime where things were going downhill, but Bear would refuse to listen to other people's ideas or how to improve the server or anything of the sort, really.
So whatever Bear said, just no questions asked, you had to do as he said.
Yeah, it was. You was working for Bear. You're very much, you are there for Bear. Like you, whatever he say goes, and he expects it to be so. I remember a quote from the time was, "Conform or resign," I believe was Bear's exact quote. I should have a screenshot of that somewhere. It was very authoritarian, I'll say. And even if someone's ideas did get picked up and run with, it would very quickly be corrupted by how Bear wanted it to be, which to an extent it is his server, but at the same time you have to sort of question what's the point of having.
Okay, moving on. How was the server funded? What do you know?
So initially, when I first joined the server, I thought it would be funded the same way as everyone else, every other server that I've ever been on, with obviously the TEDx, and also maybe some advertisements, internal advertisements, Hypersteal advertising of the servers. However, as I ascended the ranks into sort of a more senior position, I very quickly realized that was not the case, and upon reflecting on the TEDx payouts, they were very, very poor. I'm talking like $200 a month most. They were very, very poor. And that was largely down to bad financial decisions from there. The staff were massively overpaid. They were paying for things they didn't need, overpaying streamers who weren't beneficial for the server at all. So from what I learned that it couldn't have been a TEDx because it was 200. We were making like $200 a month at most. Some months it was down to as bad as like $20 to $50 a month. So it was not doing good. I did see at one point an OU report on the Owners United regarding Bear and his OnlyFans management. The OU report basically claimed that Bear had been messaging 16-year-olds, trying to talk with them in a very seductive way, in a very sexualized way, trying to get them to essentially join OnlyFans was the crux of it. Whether those reports have been since taken down, I'm not sure why. I know they were taken down and then they were reinstated, and I believe they've been taken down yet again. But I'm not too sure. I know that a lot of people from Owners United do remember that incident. I did speak to Bear at the time about his OnlyFans management, and he did confess to me that he had been managing OnlyFans accounts for some girls, and taking a commission from their accounts. But he did deny that at the time. He did deny that any minors were involved. At least for me. He did say that he was talking to a girl, and his way of justifying the OU report was that he was talking to a girl, and he didn't know her age essentially. But apparently, according to Bear, once he found out his age, he did stop contacting her.
Do you know anything else about how the server was funded? Like,
not a lot. I didn't really get to find out. I sort of in the position I was in, I didn't really ask those questions. It was kind of like don't ask, don't tell. I do know that they're admitted to the OnlyFans management. Whether or not the minors are involved is largely down to your viewpoint. If it was asked to me, I would believe that, knowing Bear's character and the time I spent with Bear, I wouldn't put it past him. But I think it could go either way. Either way, the bottom of it, the OnlyFans management was true. I've firsthand heard that from Bear. Whether or not the minors were involved, it's down to personal interpretation, really.
alright, thanks for that. Moving on. What do you know about the $500 tournament? And was it rigged in any sort of way? Because a lot of people have been asking about that.
Yeah, so from the beginning of the event, really, I was told that we wanted to start, Bear wanted to start another $500 event. I tried to tell him to go down to $200, as the server was already in really bad finances, in a really bad financial situation. But Bear essentially decided it was going to be $500 because he believed that would get in players, and in a way it did. Although what we soon found out was a lot of the players only joined for the events and then would leave immediately after, so it didn't really do the server any good in the long run. But the thing was, when the event was first proposed to me by Bear, I was told that he wanted it to be semi-scripted in a way. In his words, he didn't want to give money to randoms, to people he didn't know, and that was his only apprehension about the whole event. So he decided that we would have to ensure that one of the staff teams won, be it, I think they were Oreo or Axis BDM at the time. So there was a lot of shady stuff surrounding the event. With, I think initially it just started off with pairing Axis up against the easier teams. That was initially how we started off, by ensuring that they had an early lead. We'd put Axis up against all the easy teams, and then the rest of the hard teams would go up against themselves. And then as the event went on, it got a lot closer than I think any of us were expecting. So then measures had to be increased in order to fulfill Bear's wish, as it were, to make sure that one of these teams won. And that's when things started happening with like some players. I believe some players got items. I know that some of the other managers and things were giving out items to players. Senior mods were encouraged to re-roll themselves and told that a blind eye would be turned to it. And I believe there was also some intentional crashing given to certain players where they'd be crashed out of the server. On top of that, I mean, all you need to do is look over I'm not in the Hypersteal Discord myself, so I can't check now, but I'm assuming that if the channel is still there, in the announcements channel, you should be able to see essentially all the support that Axis and BDM got from the higher ranking staff like Bear and myself and other people. And then the other teams didn't even get a look in. So whenever there was an Axis victory, it would be published on the main Discord, and whenever any other team won, we'd just not say anything about it. It's essentially, we were trying to make Axis look like victors from the start, essentially. I mean, even when we got sharpness to come into the server. We put him with Axis just because we thought it will increase their chances. There's no chance they can lose if they have a high-ranking PvP player.
Next question. What was the vision for the server among
the vision or the mission for the server did vary among staff. I had my own personal mission. Bear had his, and Strowing had his before he left. I know Strowing's vision was just to make a good server. He wanted a good server that people would enjoy. My vision was very much, I wanted pretty simple Strowing. I wanted a good server, but I also wanted to make sure that the server had growth. I was focusing, my role anyway, was focusing more on growth and the development of an actual server that could have more opportunities and engage players more rather than just pumping out the same content. Whereas on the other hand, Bear's idea for the server, it's a cash grab essentially. He wanted to get as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, and that was essentially the reason he bought the server and the reason he ran the server. He did not care how the money was got or gained. He only cared about getting it essentially. And you can see, even if you just log onto the server, you can see that the entire of this new season they've released is a clone of season 3. It's an identical clone. Everything is the same, entirely cloned from season 3. The mostly doesn't even work. They've just, like, for example, the traders are still at the CPVP pit. That's still there. They don't work. But things like that, they've quite clearly put minimal effort into it in order to get some more money. And the server itself, like I say, a lot of it is cloned. A lot of it is just lazy, really. Even down to, like, they release new updates, but it's not an update. It's quite literally just the same items with new textures. They release the same crate week on week, just different textures and a different name. If you look at the actual items in the crates each month when they release a new crate, it's the exact same items with the same enchantments, the same features. Yeah, they've just retextured and renamed essentially, which each to their own opinion on that, but I think that's a bit scummy because there's nothing new for players, there's nothing to keep people engaged. It's just, okay, now I've got a sword that's a different color. It's the exact same thing. Yeah, I mean, there was so many dodgy techniques going on in order that Bear did to get money. He would do things from, like, selling Unbans and mutes. There was once when we released an item which was a one-shot sword. He put that in a crate, and in the most expensive crate, that item had a 0% chance of winning. So it couldn't be won. It was quite literally a 0% chance. So all those people that were buying that crate hoping to get the item didn't get it because it was 0%. It was literally impossible. And even if...
Speaking of the one-shot weapon, were you aware that the item that people had paid for, or whatever, it was just going missing, disappearing from people's inventories randomly with no trace whatsoever?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. That was not a bug. That was staff taking the items, and that happened quite a lot. There was a time during my period of staffing where we were encouraged to false ban. The admins were encouraged to take donators' items and things or raid their bases in order to encourage them to donate more. So we were encouraged to false ban in the hopes that the players would buy Unbans, or we were encouraged to take items out of inventories or ender chests and call it a bug and say that they wouldn't be getting a refund and they'd need to buy new items essentially and spend more money. The whole server essentially was a scam. It was a way for Bear to try and figure out how to get as much money as quickly as possible. I mean, even down to, like,
I know you mentioned unbans and unmutes. Can you, like, elaborate on that?
yeah, so the paid unbans and unmutes, or even down to, like, unblacklisting, it was a very under the table thing. It was whenever a player would DM Bear and complain that they were banned, the first thing Bear would say is, it'll cost you this amount to buy an unban. And he would ask them to send either buy something from the store, such as if you buy a crate key, I'll unban you, or he would just ask for them to send him the money directly. That happened very frequently, and we had numerous staff members resigning over it.
Oh, is that why Sammy resigned?
I didn't get to speak to Sammy as much during my time there. She left very quickly after I joined. Sammy, I believe she was very angry with Bear at the time. Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of her, she can only speak to herself. But she was definitely very annoyed with Bear that he was doing paid Unbans, and she did not agree with it in the slightest.
So, what was the deal with Totem SMP, and what happened with that?
Yeah, so essentially, Bear bought Totem SMP when it was sold. He bought it, it was a couple thousand, I can't remember exactly how much, but it was a few thousand. I want to say between like 2,000 and 4,000. He bought it and very quickly realized that the server wasn't working. It was a collapsing server, and they didn't really have a player base. It didn't really have an organized staff team. So Bear very quickly decided he wanted to resell it to try and regain the money back he just sold. So knowing that, Bear contacted who I'm happy saying is a child under the age of 18, and basically convinced him that he could buy this server off Bear, and that Bear would help him set it up and he told this kid how good of a server it was, how well it was doing financially on the Tebex, and basically said that if you buy this server, you'll get all your money back anyway, and it'll be a great purchase for you. So the kid fell for that, and essentially he did, yeah, he paid Bear for the server. Bear chucked over the console and just left him alone, which admittedly Bear is under no obligation to do to help someone set up the server. But I think with the kid who ended up buying it, he was very much naive, and I think Bear knew that and sort of preyed on the idea that this kid didn't know what he was doing in order to essentially convince you to buy the server. So I think it was just definitely very, very malicious, very deceitful more than anything.
You think they're gonna do the same with Hypersteal when trying to sell it?
I wouldn't be surprised. I myself, having seen the back end of the server and the front end, having been actively engaged in the community, I would strongly discourage anybody from buying the server. Regardless of what Bear or Aman tell you, the server is not worth it. I don't think anything over $500 would even be worth it. The server is full of malware. The server has a rapidly declining player base, and the server is making zero money because it is all cracked players. So because all of their players are cracked, it's like you could get a new server for the price they're selling it for. You could make your own server. You could set it up and get paid developers and things for a lot cheaper, and still have a better server that gets more players because of just how poor essentially the servers do performing. The crack player base, they don't donate, obviously, and I think the server's going downhill, and if they're just trying a last-ditch attempt to sell the server, and if somebody buys it, then whoever that person is going to realize that they've been scammed essentially.
Yeah, that's really scummy. Would you happen to know anything about like Aman? What his role was in the server? Because I suspect he has like a much higher role than people think he does.
So Aman, as I've called him several times, both to his face and to other people, is a nepotism baby. He is only in the role he is because he is friends with Bear. He first joined, I believe he met Bear on OU, and he first joined Hypersteal as a developer, but was very quickly moved up to management and then so on. He was massively overpaid. I believe he was paid between like 400 at one point. And he basically did nothing. He would do tiny fixes here and there. He would change some configs around. But most of the time, whenever he tried to fix anything, it would create more problems than were there originally. For example, if we complained about the lag, he would delete a load of plugins, and then the server would just break, and then we'd have to restore to a backup. A lot of the work that he, quote unquote, work that he did for the server was copy and pasted from servers like TotemSMP. A lot of the work he did was just copy and pasted from other servers, down to like the crates. If you look at the crates and then go on to like TotemSMP, they're the exact same. The textures were copied from there. Most of the stuff Aman did was either copy and pasted or just created issues. It kind of got to the point, particularly during the time when I was there, that they didn't give Aman anything to do because everything he did either wrong or poorly. Aman is only there really for the money, and that's kind of it. He's there because he's getting money from it. He doesn't care about the server. He's not that good of a developer. He knows how to change some configs, but even when he does it lazy and he does it poorly. It's the thing with Aman is unless you're there watching him do something and telling him word for word exactly how you want it done, he'll mess it up. So it's in my opinion, he's in the wrong role. He shouldn't. I'm surprised he's even a developer. It's just very, very poor. Even down to Aman, quote unquote, making Season 4, he's just copy and pasted everything over. It's ridiculous. And as for Aman knowing people, he doesn't know people. He has people added, but they rarely reply to him. It's no different to you and I adding people. He's just not worth being on the team and definitely not worth being paid what he's paid. But as he's friends with Bear, he was essentially immune from all consequences. Also, there was the time when Aman, there was also the time when Aman raided several players' bases here. So, as I was told, they was having an issue with the server economy where players were getting like $1 trillion in game. So he decided that he needed to fix that. And now logical people would think, okay, so we'll change the prices of the shops, and we might offer them an alternative, such as we'll give you this item if you pay for it with in-game money. So things like that, so decrease just the general economy, change the spawn rates of spawners, just logical things like that. However, Bear and Aman came up with a genius idea of raiding players' bases. So during their time on the server, they would join the server in Vanish, teleport to players, particularly players who were AFK, and just blow up their bases, destroy their spawners. And then whenever a ticket was made, Aman would deal with the tickets and just say, oh, there's no sign of X-ray, we can't help you.
Any final things that you have to say?
If you're donating to this server, you're literally wasting your money. If you look at actually what you're paying for, and you look at the server itself, you'll quickly realize that it's not worth it, and there's so many better servers you can go on and spend your money with. As well as the things that you're supporting, it's just not a great place to be. I think if you want to donate to a server, find a server that actually cares about its players, and just generally puts effort into their server. I think if you're looking at buying the server, avoid it at all costs. They will hide things from you. They will fake TEBEX results of their TEBEX monthly payments. They will not disclose certain information to you, such as like the malware on the plugins. The plugins are covered in malware and are frequently. We had probably once a week issues with malware on the plugins. It's honestly just not worth your money. Even if they sell it to you for $500, you're wasting your money. You will not get the money back. The player base is declining rapidly. You're honestly better taking your money and starting your own server, paying for developers and paying for media managers, because you will end up with a better product than Hypersteal. It's beyond saving at this point.